Hey everyone. So this is my perspective on lore, especially when we're talking about deity and paganism aspects. It's shaped by two things. The first one, they were first stories, verbal stories that were told over and over again, and they weren't written for, hundreds, sometimes even thousands of years before they were written down. So they were told this way. And here's the thing. When you're telling a story, every version has the person's own flair to it. So each artist that's telling the story puts their own style, puts their own flair. For example, say I see a turtle one morning walk across our valley. That's the truth because that's what I observe. Then I tell my son, and my son is a writer, so he decides that, well, that's boring. And so, and why is he walking across the valley? So he's walking across the valley because of this really great greeny tall grass area on the other side that's got all the bugs and stuff that he wants to eat. So he adds that to the story and he tells his sister. His sister is like, well, that's kind of boring, so I want to add something else. And, each generation will add their own thing. Each artist will add their own thing. And so, first we added the green spot that he was going to. Then we added a deer because, let's get some action in there. So the turtle's crossing across the valley, runs into a deer, gets scared, hides in its shell, and the deer pokes at it a little and, the turtle never gets to his grass. Okay, and the next person's like, well, that's, sure, but let's change that up a little bit. Let's make it so the turtle is going to be stealthy and try to figure out how to stealth away from the deer on this story. So, instead of the deer getting caught by, or the turtle getting caught by the deer, the turtle is going to cross over. It's going to be real sly and get around the deer and stuff so he can get over to his grass and gets to his grass. We could go on, but it's pretty self-explanatory at this point that you can see how this evolves, where one story gets embellished and changed and all this. Thus, there is truth in all stories, but no story is true. And we see that play out even in our modern days. We see old stories and, the King Arthur story is probably the most redone story that we ever have, in my opinion. So there are like all these different versions of the King Arthur story. But here's the thing. There is some truth in that. But what the truth is, we don't know anymore. The way we write history is a second thing that shapes my view on lore. So we all know that history is written by the victors. That means there are two different perspectives, and war is a great example of this. There are two different perspectives when you're talking about war. The ones that won and the ones that didn't. The ones that were invaded and the ones that were defending. Two very different perspectives, yet we only see in our histories our side of it or the side that won. And they will change things, little things to, justify their actions and show that they were justified in their war. This happens all the time. It's happened throughout history. So knowing that people embellish and knowing that, stories were passed in that way, knowing the way that, we even tell history now kind of shapes my views on lore. This isn't gospel. This isn't 100% truth. This isn't, exactly what happened. These aren't exactly the events. They've changed over time. And then you have to accept the fact that the majority of, not all of it, was written by Christians, by monks, by people that had heavily Christian influence. These are the stories that we have written today. These are the ones that we keep coming back to today. And so, like it or not, there is that influence there. Even if they tried to be objective, which I highly doubt, you still have that problem that it's written from their perspective. And we even see now how much Christian influence is in our society, not just, within church and all that, and not just within their group, but it has shaped our laws. It has shaped, how our governments work. It shaped kingdoms. A lot of that influence is really ingrained into, our society and how we think. So you have to recognize that, and you have to see that, you know, a lot of control mechanisms go into that, ways to control people's behavior. Thus, the stories, we know that they've been changed. We know that some of the deity that were demonized, especially women goddesses, um, demonized in those stories, and their stories have been changed in order to fit the Christian narrative. A lot of the darker gods and goddesses, they probably have it the worst in this. Now, am I saying that lore is useless then? No, absolutely not. I love reading. I love researching. And like I said, there is truth in all stories, but no story is true. That means I'm looking at them from a place of inspiration, a place of, starting to do that connection. Read all the lore you can, but understand and do not take it like gospel. Don't take it like, oh, these were the actual events. This is actually what happened. This is, what was said, and this is what was done, and this is from everybody's perspective, so that makes it true, because it's not. It's from one side's perspective, one person's perspective, and that changes things. So yes, when you are learning about a people, read the lore, look at the histories, see and find anything you can on the archaeology and all of that, the anthropology, the movement of people, who they were trading with, who were they connecting with, how did the people move. These things are all going to give you clues and ideas of what really happened, what the people were really like, why they connected in the ways that they did. Like I said, all of them give us clues, all of them give us little pieces. But when you are connecting, after you've done, research and read and learn, when you go to actually connect with deity or with ancestor of that time, listen to them. Let them tell you their stories from their perspectives. Let them tell you, what matters to them, what is important to them. Let them teach you their own views, their own magic, because each one of them has it. Don't blindly follow other people just because, they claim to know this, and, they have done all this research and they're so scholarly and they've written all these books and stuff. That doesn't make them right. Your spiritualism is a journey of self. And so your lessons are going to be personal. The things you need to go through are going to be personal. Your discoveries are going to be personal. And your communication and that connection and what that deity gives you or guide gives you is going to be personal to the path that you are walking. So I'm going to be the opposite of most people. I am going to say that yes, reading the lore and understanding the people and the culture is very, very important. But when it comes to your path, your journey, and your connection with deity, what you experience, what they tell you, is going to trump and rule everything else. Or at least it should. Because you're not walking everybody else's path. You are walking yours. You can agree with me. You can disagree with me. It really doesn't matter to me. It doesn't change anything for me. So you make up your own mind. You figure out how you want to walk this and how you want to do this. But just keep these perspectives in mind. Think about it logically. Look at it from what you know about how things are twisted today. Think about the game telephone. Think about the way our histories are written. Use the lore as a guide, but not a gospel.